Hello, Whisky folks. How are we all? It's Roy. First vPub of 2019. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're all doing fantastic in this brand new year. The Whisky year for me starts here tonight with you guys. It's fantastic to see so many of you in waiting already. 77 of you before the pub doors had even opened tonight. Wonderful. As I'm sitting here setting everything up and trying to get things ready and things, occasionally a wee bit of imposter syndrome creeps in. So it's fantastic for me to kind of look out there and see so many familiar names waiting, and it's great to welcome you all. And of course, welcome the guys who are picking this up on the replay. Fantastic that you do that as well. If I'm good at my housekeeping, I will try to remember to put some timestamps in, and I am going to also try to keep this one below 2 hours tonight. Good luck with that. So many of you in from really early on. There was lots of chat happening, even back as far as 9 o'clock tonight when I first clicked in and started to organize things and get things ready. People were starting to chat to each other. So it just goes to show just how much of this is about you guys talking to each other and hanging out and seeing each other. You know, you get to know each other, even though you probably haven't met face to face. A lot of times you're just getting to hang out and chat to each other in the crowd. It's wonderful to see. And some of the names that were in early, I just want to shout these guys out that were waiting there from really quite early on, hopefully having a nice dram while they were waiting. Andy Arbagi, one of the first in. Daniel Vermas from Hungary. Fantastic, Daniel. Nice to see you. Mark Goyne was in. Radek was in. Stephen Davison was in. Whiskey Geek Ben was in. Jimmy Legg, the Scotch for Dummies, was in as well as my friend Gregor McWee, who I've got to thank Gregor tonight for a lot of the content I'm going to be talking about and sharing with you tonight, and probably in the weeks going forward, was thanks to some generous samples arranged by my friend Gregor McWee in the States. Superb. So yeah, the theme tonight, to kick off 2019, obviously in the UK, we have to wait for our Game of Thrones releases. These are 9 whiskies that Diageo are releasing in collaboration with HBO to commemorate the Game of Thrones series, supposedly. Obviously, gives Diageo a chance to get their whiskies under a lot of new noses as well. So they're releasing 8 malts, which of course is what we are mostly interested in, and they're releasing a blend as well, or they have released a blend, and that's already come out, the White Walker. But in the UK, we don't get it until February next month, whereas in the States, they've had it since October last year. I think October, maybe November time. And a lot of it is sold out already over there. I've just had a virtual dramming from my friend Bobby over in Texas. Bobby Ustar, thank you so much. He's saying, I've got to run. Time to fire up one of the pits. Good man. But wanted to pop by and say hi. I'll catch the replay. Bobby, you start. It was nice to see you and nice and early and chatting to everybody as well. Hope you do catch it in the replay and stick around for the quiz at the end, Bobby. And thank you very, very much for your virtual dram, my friend. It's always nice to have you in when you can make it. Cheers. Tell you what I'm sipping in a second. So yeah, February, we're not getting anything from the Game of Thrones releases in terms of the single malts until February. But this was released last year, and I didn't buy this. This is some samples given to me by Vin from No Nonsense Whisky. This is the first of the Game of Thrones releases, which was Johnny Walker, the White Walker. Very cool packaging. I didn't love the artwork and the bottle. I didn't like the style of the bottle so much, but I loved the White Walker styling of Johnny Walker himself. I thought that was pretty cool. And, you know, so much of a whiskey is there on the label for you to discover before you've even tasted it. And if you pick up a bottling that it's a blend and it's got kind of gimmicky marketing on it, it's 40%, and it tells you to freeze it to reveal a hidden message, that tells you what that whiskey is already, and it tells you the intended market just by kind of looking at the packaging. So we shouldn't be surprised, and I'm certainly not surprised, what this whiskey sips like, because it's not really intended for that. It's intended to have fun with. It's intended to throw in with ice and soda and cocktails and just give whiskey flavors to things. And the fact that you can sip it and it's not that offensive is probably something to be welcomed. There's literally no finish here. There's a lot of kind of spirity ethanol flavors going on. And there's just there's just a very generic whiskey taste to it. The only thing that I would suggest is negative about this in the big scheme of things, because we don't need to engage with this stuff, is the price. I felt it was a bit expensive. Anyway, let's jump into the lounge and speak to some of you guys before I prattle on too long, and welcome some of you in. It's wonderful to see so many of you. Colourless Blue Things is in. Great to see you. He's saying Lagavulin 16 has been my Christmas whiskey. Lagavulin 16 seems to fit so many occasions, Colourless Blue Things. It really does. Only about a quarter of the bottle left now. The fastest I've got through one in years. Yeah, do you know, it's really funny. Everybody I speak to that loves Lagavulin 16 talks about it going up and down and up and down and all over the place. I wonder how much of that is the whiskey and how much of that is us. It does change. It definitely changes. I've got older expressions of Lagavulin. I've even got a Lagavulin White Horse that goes back to the late 80s. Of course it's changed. But like every other batch-produced whiskey that's ever been made, it's going to change. JW Baseman is in. Fantastic to see you, my friend. He's saying, hi, Roy, evening. All Scott Pelton is in. Scott, that looks like a new name. Wonderful to see you in. Welsh Toro is in. He's saying, good point to cast strength. There's a tilt out there. Shane Holden, that's another new name. Shane, good to welcome you in. First time catching this live, pumped to be a part of it while I can. I'm very glad to welcome you, Shane. Great to see you in. Keith Corbett, my friend Keith is in. Great to see you. Doc from Germany, Macallan Fine and Rare, superb. Fantastic. Yes. My favourite word. Marcus is in. Marcus Kreitner, wonderful to see you. Does that mean Christina is sitting next to you? Marcus, say hello to Christina for me as well. Everwind is in. Wonderful to see you, Everwind. Great to have you when you can make it, my friend. Toby Field is in. Great to see you, Toby. Your T-shirt is on the way. It's currently being pressed by a professional company. I've got a funny story to share with everybody about my box of 25 T-shirts. I had 25 T-shirts left. Unfortunately, no double XLs, in case you're interested. Only XL and smaller. And Toby wanted one. Unfortunately, I had one in his size, but I had a disaster when I went to retrieve it for him. And I'll tell you about it. And I said, well, I'll forget about it. So I'll tell you about it just now. Over the back, what you can't see is a kind of cupboard, a mirrored cupboard. And in there, covered in plastic, I kept my T-shirts so that they would be, they wouldn't get any dust and things like that. And there's no real kind of, this is far away from any cooking activity and things in the house. It was a good, clean, safe place to keep them. But Toby was after a large, and I wasn't sure whether I had a large left. So I went into the cupboard, I took out the box, 25 T-shirts left, and I found a large. In fact, I found 3 larges left, which I was quite pleased about. Took out Toby's, sat it down here to be packaged into the side of my desk, then sat here to pull up his address and things like that to get it sorted for him. And I reached over to grab the monitor, the thing I'm speaking to you through just now. I reached forward to grab it, and as I did that, I knocked my dram clean off the table on top of the box T-shirts. Now, I think it would be quite funny and quite appropriate for Aquavitae T-shirts to go out smelling of Loch Lomond 12-year-old. But I don't think the couriers would appreciate that, and probably you wouldn't appreciate it either. So these T-shirts, I can't really sell them as new now. So I'm trying to work out what to do about them. Toby and I came to an agreement where I'm going to ship him a nice sample along with the T-shirt. And he's quite happy about it, as long as they come back from... I sent them to a professional launderer to get them done properly so that they would come back nice and crisp and looking good. But it's a disaster. I only had 25 left, and I threw a home pour. It was a decent pour as well over the entire box. That was the same week, interestingly, talking about moving this monitor, when I was getting ready for the live stream at the end of the year with the Whisky Rev as well. I moved this monitor and it toppled forward and smashed on me as well. So I'm getting a bit clumsy in my old age, I think. Nigel Slynn is in. He's saying, evening, everyone. Hi, Nigel. Good to welcome you in. Donald Rance is in. Great to see you again, Donald. Whiskey Straight AI. Hi, Aquavitae. I'm sipping a Dalwhinnie 15 while watching. Good for you. You're getting much honey in that Dalwhinnie 15. Always get a very honeyed experience from it, Whiskey Straight. I think that's a new name, and it's great to welcome you in. Single Malt Whiskey Enthusiast. That's another new name. Great to welcome you there. Is that Richard Patterson you've got as your icon there? Mikey Hayes, and great to see you, Mikey. Wonderful to have you back in again. And thanks so much for your message, giving me the dates for the London Whisky Club. Jez gave me the upcoming 1 or 2 dates. And if I can make it happen, I would like to try and get a low-cost flight down to London, some cheap accommodation, and join you there. That would be fantastic. Malt Chronicles is in. Great to see you, Bart. Jason Coates is in. Wonderful to see you again, Jason. Tom R is in from Illinois. Great to see it. Great to see you, Tommy, saying, yeah, I made it. Hi, everyone. Anna is in as well. No whiskey for me tonight. Not feeling very well. That's a shame, Anna. So I have tea instead. Good for you. It's interesting, there's quite a few people not having whiskey right now, this kind of dry January thing that's going on, and I want to talk about that a wee bit later, following up from the discussion that we had in December about kind of monitoring what we're drinking and things. Christina is in. Christina's our Polly as well. Wonderful to see you, Christina. Scotch for Dummies is in. Scotch for Dummies, you might have noticed, put out a video earlier today comparing the two Lagavulins, the 9-year-old and the 8-year-old, exactly what we were going to do in the live here tonight. They saw that I was doing this on a live and they got in touch straight away to tell me that the release was going ahead today, and I told them, absolutely, that's fantastic, just let it go ahead. There's no issue there whatsoever. There's nothing about stealing thunder, stepping on toes or anything like that. Most of the channels work very, very closely together, and even if we don't, if these things end up doubling up, it's just extra opinions and it's all grist for the mill for you guys. The Maltland is in. Fantastic to see you. The cast strength is in as well. That must be Vito. I'm going to guess that's Vito tonight. Trenny and C are in as well. Now, I just want to shout out Trenny and C as well. 175 of you in tonight. If there's enough of you hanging around after the live tonight, Trenny and C, I'm not sure if they've released it yet or if they're going to release it after, but they're going to do an unboxing and a review of my whiskey of the year, the Aaron 14 as well. And the two of us were kind of just shooting the breeze about the Aaron 14 earlier in the week as well. So look out for those guys. And also Scotch for Dummies, in their live stream tonight, they've actually got a brand ambassador on from Speyburn, a kind of an under-the-radar distillery, I would have to say, Speyburn. And they've got a brand ambassador on from there as well. And I'm sure that they'll be talking more about the Lagavulins and the Game of Thrones stuff as well. Prestige Liquids is in as well. Wonderful to see you. I know what the time difference is doing for you. It's already Friday for you, isn't it, Andrew? Wonderful to see you in again. Who else do we have? So many of you in. Wonderful to have you all in. While there's so many of you in just now, it's probably good that I got on talking about the topic tonight. You know, it's quite funny. There's a lot of debate going on about these kind of Game of Thrones releases. You know, people calling them gimmicky, people really excited about it, people saying, well, I'm a fan of the show, I'm going to get the whiskies, and people saying, I'm a fan of the show, but I don't care about the whiskies. I think we have to kind of view this from the perspective of you know, let's come at it from the perspective of the whiskey producer, or from Diageo's perspective. They've got an opportunity through White Walker and through all the malts, through using all the Game of Thrones houses, to release a set of whiskies on a platform that's going to take malt whiskey under the noses of people who don't normally engage with it. That's the opportunity here. Back in 1988, the same company, Diageo, under a different name, okay, it was DCL back then, but in 1988, they came out with the classic malts, and this was a wonderful hammer blow success in terms of malt whiskey marketing. Blends are dying. Everybody's drinking vodka. Everybody's drinking kind of fizzy wines and trying to understand wine and things. You know, the fashion has changed. Brown spirits it's not cool to drink brown spirits. And back then, through 50s, 60s, 70s, whiskey was blends, fully blends. I mean, single malt whiskey was not even a term. I mean, single malt might have been used, but it wasn't legalized. It wasn't a legal definition. And yes, you could buy and enjoy single malts, but they were very, very niche. It wasn't a mass market thing. And I'm speaking about even in Scotland, most of the bars in Scotland would not have had very many single malts. Maybe in the 70s, you would have started to see late 60s, 70s, things like Glenfiddich, then eventually Glenmorangie, and eventually into the late 70s, early 80s, you would have seen Macallan started to appear. But the market was whiskey, blended whiskey. That's what it was. When blended whiskey started to die in the 80s and we had all the disastrous whiskey closures, let me pour a dram while I speak to you. Diageo came out with the classic malts in 1988 because they realised that despite the death of the blend, or the diminishing demand for the blend, pouring a Kalila to get myself ready for the Lagavulins tonight, they realised that single malt whiskey is doing quite well and it's staying strong. In fact, it's growing even. So they bring out 6 classic malts. Going to try and remember them now. They had Talisker, they had Lagavulin, they had Oban, they had no, they didn't have Cardew. Cardew wasn't in it. Cragganmore, Glenkinchie, and Dalwhinnie. That was the 6 classic malts. That was an amazing thing because it used to sit on a plinth. These 6 malts sat on a plinth behind bars up and down the country and first gave that impression of 6 whiskies. Why is there 6 whiskies together? Why all from the same company? Well, it's to tell you and to show you the 6 clearly different flavour profiles over all of these 6 whiskies. And for hundreds and thousands of people, that would have been the first time that that concept had even dawned on them, that they could really taste whiskies and contrast and find a flavour that they preferred or liked, and explore regionality in Scotch whisky. And then understand that these were 6 single malts and how single malts differed from blended whisky. Super successful exercise. Lots of companies have tried to follow in the steps since with varying success. But Diageo have kept that core 6 classic malts, the original 6 classic malts, and they've extended them over the years. And now Diageo, I think, is probably the only producer of any scale. I mean, there's only really 3, right? There's Chivas or Pernod Ricard, there's Edrington, and there's obviously Diageo. Diageo is the only one that since the early 90s have tried to release every single one of their distilleries as a single malt, perhaps with the exception of Rose Isle, which I haven't seen yet. So you can see what that did. That got single malts out there. It got it under the noses of people that don't normally engage. And I think that that's the opportunity that Diageo are taking now with this Game of Thrones. What does that mean for us? To me, and I haven't sipped a single one of these 8 whiskies yet, to me it tells me that they're going to be accessible, they're going to be rounded, they're going to be easy to drink, and they're going to be things to try and give newbies a hook. That's what I expect that we're going to experience tonight with perhaps the Lagavulin. I'm also going to compare the 2 8-year-old Lagavulins that I'm comparing the Game of Thrones 9-year-old against as well, because I've just had lots of feedback, people telling me that the new 8-year-old isn't as good as the original limited edition 200th anniversary one. So I want to check that as well and see what that's like. See what you guys are saying. Gregor is saying, very clever idea, Roy. The classic malts and Cardew came later. Yes, as Kalila, yep. Momentaneously replace shortage of Laga's casks. That's right. But you know that. Yeah, I mean, there was a long time that Lagavulin was actually on allocation. Not because of, okay, a wee bit to do with how successful it was as a single malt, but just how much Diageo needed it for its blends, right? Eric Waite is in. Fantastic to see you. I just tweeted this live stream on Twitter. Thank you, Eric. You're always a great supporter, and it's fantastic to have you back in again. I'm just looking out for anything that's directed at me. Ross is in. Mashburn is in. How's Jill, Ross? Ross, I hope you're doing well. He's saying Trenny and C, Ralphie versus Aquaviti. That would be a good one. I wonder what you're talking about there. I wouldn't like to go up against either Ralphie or Trenny and C, if I'm honest, in anything. I have a pour of the Nectar d'Or, Toby is saying, in a tumbler, and I thought it would be worth a second go. I see it meets Aquaviti's A, B, C, Ds. You know, I've kind of got a soft spot for those. I think that when a lot of producers, I'm talking about Glenmorangie here, when a lot of producers kind of went down the no age statement route and things and ditched a lot of policies and things, the 10-year-olds from Glenmorangie, despite it being a 40% product, still stayed very solid, affordable and available. And then they take that 10-year and they do all these finishes. They do the Nectar d'Or, which I think is Sauterne, isn't it? The Quinta Ruban, the La Santa. And I disengage with them because you see them everywhere and they seem a bit ubiquitous. But isn't that always a mistake? Because one day you'll be sitting in a bar somewhere and somebody will hand you one and you'll realise that it's a very decent dram. Andy C is saying, watch the mentioned Aaron 14 review a bit earlier, good review. I have to be honest, my Aaron 14 that I've got downstairs that I opened on a show, it stayed hot. The last one mellowed out very, very quickly. Now, I appreciate I'm only a few weeks in, and I need to give it a bit more time, perhaps. Still delicious. I'm still enjoying it, but it's a different It's different from what I remember there. Now, bear in mind, this is the whiskey I said was my whiskey of the year last year. So much did I love it. I got through 2 bottles, more or less, on my own last year. Yes, I was sharing it out, but not much. Welsh Torres saying, Aquavita, you are drifting into a Diageo fanboy again. Not at all, Welsh. I think that I always say that when something's done well, it needs to be applauded. And when it's not done so well, you need to point it out. So things like this White Walker, it's not for us. It's not for us. It's not to say it's bad whiskey. It's just not targeted at us. And I think often I find myself taking a place of defending Diageo. It's not because I actively want to stand up and shout from the rooftops how fantastic Diageo are. I think they have probably the best portfolio in Scotch whisky, not just in terms of scale. They have the biggest at 28, but some of the distilleries that they have, obviously Clynelish, Lagavulin, Dilluan, Linkwood even, they have such a solid portfolio that you find yourself talking about Diageo when really you should be talking about individual distilleries. But I find myself taking a position of defending them because they often get crap thrown at them just because they're the big guys, I guess, or just because they're that cold corporate face, cynical, they're not really connected, they don't have that nice warm family feel like a lot of producers have. But I think they should be judged on their products often. And sometimes when you judge the products, you have to try and find ways to remove your prejudices, which isn't an easy thing to do a lot of the time. Let's see. Donald Rance is saying Diageo equals Guinness, so they're all right. Yeah, you know what, Donald? Look into the history between Grand Metropolitan and Guinness, the merger. It wasn't their finest hour, let me tell you. Radek is saying 200 online. We've got 201 watching. Fantastic. Welcome to everybody. Please understand, for everybody that's new, there's a couple of things I want to say to you. This is a live stream. It goes on for quite a little while. I think the biggest value that we have in these live streams is the intelligence, the knowledge, but also the warmth and the friendliness and the sense of community and fellowship that exists in the lounge, people chatting. So don't be afraid. If you can, maybe you're watching on a smartphone or something, it's difficult for you to chat, just to say hello, where you're joining us from, and perhaps if you are sipping something, what are you sipping? Here we go. I've poured a Kalila. So Welsh, perhaps you're right. Perhaps I'm a bit of a Diageo fanboy. I'm pouring a Kalila 12 in order to get my palate in gear for these 3 Lagavulins that we're going to have tonight. But I didn't just bring up a Kalila 12. I also brought up another favourite ale of mine, Ardbeg 10-year-old. It's a fantastic whiskey and very similar in style, profile and scope to the Lagavulin 8s, to the Kalila 12. Michael Johnson, Michael, good to have you in. He's saying my mouth is watering looking at those 2 bottles behind you, Roy. Well, over my shoulder here, I have open a Lagavulin 8. This is a limited edition. I bought 2 or 3 of these. Bought 2 originally at an airport, and they had a very good discount offer on, and I went back to get more, and they didn't have the same offer on, so I had to pay the regular price for it. So only bought 1. This is what's left of it. This is the last of those 3 bottles, and these are the limited edition from 2016. This is the anniversary bottling that they said was only going to be out for a little while. So I stocked up on it. But then when it was released as part of their core range, I relaxed a bit and I just got torn, and I just started to enjoy it much more and share it out and things. Loved this Lagavulin. Don't know anybody that doesn't like it, if I'm honest. But recently I heard that the new Lagavulin 8, which is over here, I've just had John Guntzel is in. John, fantastic to welcome you in. He's saying greetings from Austin, Texas. Fantastic. Sipping a bit of Laga 16 at the moment. Did I bring up any 16? I did. There's a bottle. I've got some Lagavulin 16 over there, so if it becomes appropriate to try that, I'll have some Lagavulin 16 as well. Thank you very much for your generous donation, John, and I'll raise a wee glass to you out in Austin, Texas. Cheers. And also, Marcin, oh, I'm not even going to, are you Polish, Marcins? Would that be Marcin? Martin? I don't know. I'm sorry, my friend. My first live with you, just want to say hello. Fantastic. That's exactly what I would like everyone to do. Just tell us where you're tuning in from. I guess if you're perhaps in the UK, if you've donated your virtual dram in sterling, thank you very much, Marcin. It's nice to have you here. It's nice to welcome you. So yeah, I wanted to open this tonight. This is the first bottle I've had of the non-limited edition, and it's quite easy to tell the difference between the two bottles. If you have a wee look, one has got the anniversary years 1816 to 2016 here, and it says limited edition on the label, whereas this one, it doesn't. It just says Lagavulin 8. Yeah, so I'm going to open this one tonight and try it alongside the Lagavulin 8. It's not apples for apples because this one's been open for a while and this will be a neck pour, but it'll kind of give us an idea. Has the quality gone down? We have to always remember it's Scotch single malt whiskey. It's a batch-driven product, and try as they might, the blenders can struggle to maintain that consistency batch to batch, and sometimes we need to enjoy and embrace the fact that it does change, because sometimes it changes for the better. And even if it doesn't, is it worse or is it just different? Often, unfortunately, it's worse. Nathan Huey, fantastic. Nathan, good to see you. Innocent. Have to return to work now. Thank you for the continued great content. Well, I'm very humbled for you to say that, Nathan. I'm not really sure. I just kind of chat into a camera and a microphone. But thank you very much for your virtual dram, and sláinte to you, my friend. Love Kalila. Love Kalila. It's a nice Islay whiskey, very clean. None of the iodine, is a wee bit salty, is a wee bit briny still. None of the iodine notes that you would normally expect. None of the dry ashen notes that you would probably get with an Ardbeg. Just a nice, clean Islay whiskey. Lots of people say that or think that it's lower in peat levels. I don't find that at all. Ebhead is saying embrace different. I notice you've shortened your name, Ebhead. You used to be Whiskey Wolf, formerly known as Ebhead, which I quite liked. But Ebhead works for me as well. Rolf, my friend, it's wonderful to have you in here. Scotch in the Bayou is in. Great to see you in here. Fantastic. Are you... I know who you are. I know who you are. Lana? Leanne? I think I know who you are, Scotch in the Bayou. It's wonderful to welcome you in here. Fantastic to see you. Gregor is saying, hi, Roy. I saw the very moving official video that Dave Brew made interviewing Ian MacArthur. Ooh, sounds like a good one. I recommend it to everyone, by the way, and I'm fascinated to learn one could try a 40-year-old lager on tour. Wow, 40-year-old Lagavulin, yeah. I once served by Ian MacArthur in the Lagavulin warehouse. I got to try a 49-year-old Lagavulin. It was in 2015, and it was when they had their 1966 cask on the go, a duty paid cask in their warehouse. And if the mood took Ian after he was doing the warehouse tour with the casks that were out there, sometimes he would go through and pick out a generous draw from this 1966 cask and share it. And that was a special treat, Gregor. Anybody that hasn't gone to Lagavulin, if you're heading there, one of the tours, one of the highlights is just to spend a bit of time on the warehouse tour with Ian MacArthur. It's a real treat. Let's see what I've missed. The doc is saying that whiskey changes and we are changing. Quite an unstable and unpredictable system. Absolutely, Doc, don't you think? You take an organic product and you distill it. So you've got this distillate that's probably the tightest thing with this. Probably in the modern era, what we're best at is controlling and tying down and fine-tuning that distillate. But then we take that organic product and we shove it inside another organic product and we put it off in a warehouse somewhere to mature in the elements. And then after it, we have all these kind of mixed casks. That's the beauty of the tasting single casks, right? To realize just how varied that is. They take all these single casks and they have to vat it together to try and match batch by batch by batch that same profile time after time. It's difficult. I'd be terrible at it, that's for certain. Absolutely for certain. So yeah, I've chosen a Kalila because I thought it would be a nice thing just to get in the shape and mood for this little comparison that we're going to try. I've got 3 glasses here. The first thing I need to do is say thank you to Gregor for arranging half a dozen samples to be brought to me here for product that we can't buy. I mean, there's going to be pallets of this stuff sitting in warehouses up and down all over the place, right? But we just can't buy it yet. He sent me a Klein Leash, an Oban, a Royal Lochnagar, the Lagavulin that we're going to use tonight. He also sent me a fantastic Stag Junior at 63.95% and the McCarthy's Oregon Single Malt at 45.2%. Fantastic stuff. A real treat. And out of the ones, the Game of Thrones releases that I was actually keen to try, he's hit them all on the head and given me a bonus of the Royal Lochnagar. I wanted to try the Lagavulin, I wanted to try the Klein Leash, and I was curious about the Oban as well, because, you know, is it just Oban Little Bay? Cronus, that looks like a new name. He's saying, where can you buy plastic whiskey sample bottles? I don't know. Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey, hit up his channel and ask Vin. He sent me half a dozen samples through. He sent me the White Walker. He sent me some Cotswolds New Make. He sent me some Cotswolds 3-year-old. Sorry, the inaugural batch, so I guess it will be 3-year-old. And he also sent me a Balvenie, and all of these came in little plastic bottles. I have sample bottles, but they're quite big. They're 5 CL 50ml glass bottles, quite unwieldy and heavy sometimes. Tom Harris saying, Roy Voyager 1 sent some digital information to the outreaches of our solar system. Yes. If we were to send 1 cask of Scotch on a similar mission, what cask do you think should be picked? Oh my God, what a random question, Tom. Let's answer it. Let's pick something. I think it's not going to age in space, is it? It's a vacuum. So it's got to be pretty mature when we launch it. It's got to be something that we're proud of. It's got to be something that, let's suggest, a nice, well-aged, see, I'm just about to say a Diageo distillery, and then I'm going to be a Diageo fanboy again. A nice, well-aged, and there has to be enough of it to go around, so let's make it a sherry butt, a refill sherry butt, full of delicious Klein Leash from, let's say, the late 80s, early 90s. But I'll accept anything up to the turn of the century and beyond. Klein Leash, there you go. Just for the sake of answering something. He's saying that, Jason Whiskey-wise, you're absolutely right. He said that these plastic bottles come from the Dram Club monthly subscription. Jason, I fully know that that's correct because they actually came in a Dram Club box as well. So somebody's making them. They're out there, so I guess you can find them. Mark Padley is in. That's a new name as well. Good to welcome you in, Mark. Cascode is in. Wonderful to see you. Jez from the London Whisky Club is in as well. Great to see you joining us again, Jez. Thanks very much for the communications recently and what's happening down at the London Whisky Club as well. Really excited to join you at some point. Okay, let's get these poured. Let's get some air into these guys. So I've got here Game of Thrones Lagavulin 9-year-old. Just pour half of it for now. It's quite a generous sample. Now I can see right away, 9 years old, you can see it in the bottle even. This is a much, much darker prospect, right, than the Lagavulin 8-year-old. It's perhaps not as dark as the 16 for sure, but we know that they are they're likely to cask up a dark colour and add E150 to get it up to consistency in the 16-year-old, whereas I think they're less likely to do that with the 8. The 8 packaging, when it first came out, did actually say on the export packaging, said mit Farbstoff on there, which is German, I believe, the doc, and some of you guys from Germany will tell me that it means with colouring. and it's a legal requirement for it to be shipped to Germany. But even on packaging, where the contents does not contain colouring, those messages can appear, just because the printer is just used to kind of printing those off and putting it in every single box that they ever print for that company. But also it kind of covers them as well. They reserve the right to add colouring at some point in the future if they feel they need to or whatever, and they don't need to go and change the packaging and things like that. It's just a cover-all type thing. And a lot of the time, the retailers over there have told me that sometimes it's just a sticker that's literally put on every box. I'm going to suggest to you that after 8 years in ex-bourbon casks, doesn't have any colour added. And if they do, it's tiny, tiny amounts. I mean, that's kind of light gold, almost straw in colour. And let's uncork this new one. Make sure it's the right one I'm opening here. Now, there are still a few of the 200-year anniversary bottles left. It's a tip for everybody that's in tonight. You can still buy, not this one, this you can buy. This is the core range now. This is the core 8-year-old. But the Whisky Exchange in the UK are still selling anniversary bottlings at 50 quid something. So if it is better, you can still grab it. Smell. Even though I've been having that Kalila, the smell is just filling the room. That lovely, lovely, inviting smell that just seems to fit so nicely during winter, right? So there we go. Let's leave these guys breathing in front of me for a while. Now, so I don't get confused, the original, I've got a Lagavulin glass here. I promise you that's a coincidence. I just grabbed 3 Glencairns and just so happened to the one that's branded as a Lagavulin one as well. Wow, I need to kind of, I'm not a Diageo fanboy, I promise. So the one that's got the Lagavulin logo etched on there is the 200th anniversary. And the one in the clear glass is the Core Expression, the standard 8-year-old. Let's see what you guys are saying. Amy is a new star. She's bullying everybody into giving the video a thumbs up as well. We're already at 105 thumbs up and only 2 thumbs down. By all means, if you want to thumbs down this video, I completely understand. It's a feedback mechanism for you. But an even better feedback mechanism is for you to send me a wee direct message or leave a comment that I can address. For those interested, Greg is saying, I just posted the video about Ian MacArthur's 40th anniversary of his work at Lagavulin on my Twitter account. You star, good share, Greg. Check it out later if you like Maltmates. I will do, Greg. That's fantastic, especially if you tagged me in it. Our baggy is saying Aquavite, oh dear. Jay Chung fanboy firmly established now. Yeah, I'm screwed. I'm into Jay. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. 2 Scotsmen raising the same glass to one another. 4,572 miles apart. Slancheroy, here's to another epic year on our whiskey journeys. That's a really, really nice gesture, Gregor. Does that mean it's the new Lagavulin you're raising? Wonderful opportunity that you've given me here to as you know, I don't curry any favors out of anyone. I don't ask anyone for samples. I never take samples from producers. That's not true. If the samples offered to me from producers are the same as Joe Public gets, fine, no problem. If it's the same stuff that anybody's willing to get, and if it's just kind of nice gestures and kind of sharing whiskey, there's no problem with that. But I don't accept bottles and I don't accept samples of product through the mail and things. I've got plenty whiskey to be getting on with. Thank you very much. Whiskey Ace is in. Whiskey, good to see you. He's saying, felt like the 200th opens up well after a few weeks if it's a fresh pop bottle. Absolutely, and that's why I said we're not comparing apples for apples truly tonight, because the Core Expression 8-year-old is obviously from a sealed bottle, but we'll give it a go anyway. Let's, palate's in good shape after that Kalila. Let's go for the one that I'm familiar with. Let's go for my Lagavulin 8-year-old that I loved. I still love it as well. Very vanilla. But not sweet vanilla, not sickly vanilla, just like a nice, fresh, bright, it's floral even as well. Lots of brine and salt. No savoury in there, but there's a sweetness. And the sweetness I recognise. I'm hoping I get it tonight when I sip this as well, but usually when I sip this mid-palate and onto the finish, you get this sweetness that reminds me almost of a powdered sugar, like an icing sugar sweetness. Slanch everyone, Lagavulin 8 200th edition. And the spice and the pepper at the end. And sugar and sweetness. How can they exist together, right? But they do. It's like that flickering salt. It's an 8-year-old whiskey. It's just an absolute cracker. I can see why I got through this so quickly, and I can see why I got back to buy more. And over my shoulder here, you can see there's my 4th bottle of That's the Anniversary Edition is there, 200th Anniversary Edition. But another one, because I want always to, if I'm in the mood for this, I want it to be available to me. And I want other people to taste that as well. It's a very clean Islay whiskey experience. There's no dirt and earth and kind of deep, dark, oily characters going on there. It's probably the straightest, most honest Lagavulin. And I think, again, this is something that we should celebrate, that there's a Lagavulin out there now presented at 46%. I actually believe that there's no colour added, but until they put it in the label, we'll just kind of leave it hanging there. But it's got an age statement on there, a single-digit age statement. Fantastic. I think the industry needs to be more confident about that. I think it needs to educate people. I think everybody should get together and say, guys, let's just start putting single-digit age statements on there. I know it's tricky. I know it's difficult. But they've spent 30, 40 years teaching us that age is really important. 12-year-old is a starting point now. It used to be a vintage. But it's got a single-digit age statement on there from one of the biggest producers, from the biggest producer. 46% ABV as well. Now, I know what this does when I add a wee bit of water in it. Takes water very well, not too much. And without even thinking too much, bear in mind it's a neck pour, I'm just going to dive into now the new 8-year-old, or the core 8-year-old. Damn. Flatter on the nose. I know it's still a wee bit tight. I know it's kind of just a fresh pour. It's not got the same bright nose. Sweetness is still there. That sweetness thing is still there. Now, when I talk about sweetness, I'm not actually talking about the sweetness that you would get from a bourbon barrel. So I'm not talking about the vanilla sweetness. There's a vanilla here. But the sweetness I'm talking about is like the sweetness that you would get from New Make Spirit. If you've ever tried New Make, ever so slightly quieter than the one I've just had. Okay, let's have a wee sip. This is slightly drier. There's a little bit of ash in there, like it's more similar to like an Ardbeg 10 in style. The sweetness is still there, but it's not as bold. It's not as obvious. It's quieter. Everything is quieter. I think this probably needs a wee bit of time to open up. But hand on heart, honestly, that's still a good dram, a very good dram. Yes, there's a difference. But is the difference because, you know, it's not as good as the original anniversary edition? Tonight, it's just as likely to be that it's from a brand new bottle. Still delicious. Maybe this finish is a bit shorter as well, honestly. Let's go back again to the original one. Eric is saying, what do you mean by quieter? I've never heard that term used to refer to a whiskey or wine before. It's one of Ralphie's favourite, actually, and I get it completely. When Ralphie talks about a quiet whiskey, he's talking about a much more subtle thing. You need to spend a bit more time with it to get it. It's not kind of shouty and loud and bold. The flavours aren't obvious hooks. You need to dig for them a wee bit, spend a bit more time looking for them. That's what I'm talking about. Bit more difficult to interrogate, to analyse. That's what I mean about quieter. But Eric, you're an expert at describing spirits, wines, and drinks. I'm just a noob, so indulge me a wee bit. Quiet makes sense in my world. This is This is the one that's been open for a while, obvious. If I was to pick a favourite between those two, yes, you could force me to make a call on it. But if people are picking up the 8-year-old, the new one, and feeling let down, I'm not sure it's a comparison to the 200th anniversary. I think it's maybe just a comparison to another bottle or batch that they've had previously. I'm not disappointed by the new 8-year-old at all. Donald Rance is saying quieter could be used to describe a number of Irish whiskies. Perhaps. Sevi the Alchemist is in. Have you tried the Thomas H. Handy we were talking about a couple of nights ago? You mean Aquavita need to wet the baby's head soon? Yes. Can everybody congratulate the Alchemist Sevi on the arrival of his baby Remy, who just got home, I think, yesterday. Brand new out the wrapper baby, gorgeous little new arrival. I'll raise a glass to you, Sevi, and to baby Remy and your expanding family. All the very best. Congratulations, my friend. Okay, as far as I'm concerned at this stage, before we go and compare either of those 8-year-olds to the new Game of Thrones 9-year-old, I'm very happy with both of these. That new one, the one I've just opened tonight, is drier. Just a bit more light and briny. The sweetness is more developed and fuller in the original anniversary edition. But like I say, it's every bit as likely to be this that it's been open for a while. It's still damn good whiskey. The Alchemist is saying, thank you, Aquaviti. Very blessed. You are. It's wonderful. I'm just thinking that all of these whiskies that I'm sipping tonight, potentially, none of them existed in the days before I was a father. My kids will be, my oldest two, they'll be 11 years old next month. Wow. It's an energy sap, Sevi. But I know you know that already because I know this is your second. Whiskey Geek is saying, have you ever had a blind tasting twist a whiskey for you? I had a Glen Scotia come up recently and haven't been able to shake that weird funk since. Yeah. Well, that exists in Glen Scotia, absolutely. It also exists in Springbank, Benromac, Bowmore. A number of other distilleries have that kind of thing. And the fantastic thing is when you pick it out blind, when you taste it blind, and when you go back and sip it in a lineup with other things, and every time you come back and taste the same thing again, the best thing you can do is just kind of try and label that and memorize it and hope that you can pick it up in the future again. But yeah, I've had that happen quite regularly. And I know exactly what you're talking about, Ben, in that Glen Scotia. I don't know which expression, but I've talked about the Glen Scotia 15 specifically, that on two separate occasions, a club night and another night, two different guys pointed out that they got smoked salmon. Now, we get savoury from a lot of whiskies, but these two different guys, one of them was Scott at the Whisky Club, another guy was in the pot still, talked about smoked salmon on the finish of that Glen Scotia. Now I look for it when I'm sipping it, and I can often pick it up. But yeah, I do get it from time to time, Ben. Absolutely. I wish I never found it. It was nicer without. Yeah, I know. I think what you find though is that sometimes when you get a challenging flavour like that, on first approach, you maybe are switched off to it a wee bit and you don't like it always the first time. And then with a bit of distance and time and in contrast with something else, you pick up something else and you start to enjoy it and you say, why am I enjoying that? And then you just understand that it's that funk thing happening again. But it takes your brain, your palate, everything time to get their head around something that they probably weren't expecting to find in a glass of whiskey. Whiskey Radar is in. Hi, Whiskey Radar, good to see you. Saying Highland Park is a heather honey. It's also easy to get. Absolutely, Highland Park is another distillery that can often have an almost vegetal note to it. And you're saying heather honey, that's absolutely, I get that completely. And it's often talked about in Highland Park. And it's never more obvious to me than, honestly, than in a 12-year-old. Eric is saying I had savoury and meaty notes from whiskies, but not anything that reminded me of fish. Well, it's not fish specifically. It wasn't a fish smell, but it was that kind of smoked salmon smell. So you've just got that light savoury note, smoked. And it wasn't the same as smoked meats. And Josh is in. Josh, fantastic to see you. Josh Golladay is saying he gets tons of smoked salmon with dill on Ardbeg or Verdes. So I've never tried that Ardbeg. I've never ever tried it. But I can imagine the one that I used to get in a lot when I was first starting out was Talisker. I used to get smoked notes, smoked meat notes and savoury salted meats, not sweet meats, but salted savoury meats in Talisker. And I remember what I used to do was I would have Talisker alongside smoked salmon and try it alongside salamis and maybe smoked meats and things. But it never worked. And I suppose what I'm doing there is I'm eating the smoked meats. I'm eating these flavours that match exactly what I think I'm tasting in a whiskey. And that's extreme. And when I go back to the whiskey, it's just kind of cancelled out and I don't taste it. I think what can bring it out sometimes is when you contrast the kind of nibbles and things that you're eating alongside the dram. Malt Content is in. Good to see you in. He's saying, got a couple of bottles of the 200th anniversary edition. Looking forward to sampling. It's a great dram. You should just burst one open and enjoy it. Fantastic. Jason Whiskey Wise is in tonight. My friend Jason, obviously, he's got his own channel over there. I think I saw a comment from earlier to say he wasn't feeling too great right now, but he's always in here supporting me. Jason, you're a superstar. If any of you aren't checking out Jason's content, please do. The energy is fantastic. He's a wonderful guy to hang out with and geek out about whiskey too. Travis Suders is in, my friend. Sorry, Travis Soders. And he's just bought me a virtual dram as well from the States. Travis, you star. Thank you so much. No comment or anything, but I'm going to just raise a wee dram of this Lagavulin 8 and say, slant you, my friend, and thank you for your dram. Not disappointed by that new 8-year-old at all. Not at all. But I'm a Diageo fanboy, remember. Be careful. Don't trust it. And Whiskey Radar is saying, did you try the latest Bladnock 10? It has a striking cheesy bacon crisps note, quite off-putting, but really unique. Do you know what? I found that, and I think Benromac need to be celebrated because they are really bringing out some really quite characterful whiskies, and they are bringing in some kind of character challenging notes in there as well. There is a bit of funk and there's a bit of savoury going on there, and they're trying to pursue a traditional way of making whiskey. So it is producing these kind of more unique notes, maybe like the bacon crisps thing that you're talking about, Whiskey Radar. And I get it in Benromac, but I don't think it's off-putting. I think it's down to mood. And I think that when you're getting that, when you're being challenged by a whiskey like that, switch up your palate. Have a chunk of dark chocolate, dark bitter chocolate. Have oat cakes, have a bit of cheese. Cheese, you mentioned cheese there. Cheese is one of the best things. That's especially for me, a hard waxy cheese, like a bit of Parmesan even, you know, a nice chunk of fresh real Parmesan, or what's the sheep's cheese from Spain? Manchego, I think it is. Something like that, a nice waxy hard cheese with a dram. The cheese tastes better, the dram tastes better. And as you nibble at this cheese and sip the whiskey, go backwards and forwards. It's amazing. So when you're being challenged like that by a dram, maybe a wee nibble on the side can completely transform the experience. My friend Travis is saying I've accepted that my last name is now Suitors. Well, I think we would, in Scotland, we would pronounce your surname Suders. And I know that that's probably wrong, but I appreciate that it's Soders, and I apologise for continually getting it wrong. This is tough. This is a tough thing to do. It's quite ironic for a guy that does pronunciation videos to get so much pronunciation wrong, right? Thomas George is in. Fantastic to see you, Thomas. He's saying Aquavita getting a little smoked fish off this Lefroy 10 cast strength tonight. I wonder if that's just by the power of suggestion, Thomas, with the slight brine notes as well, giving off memories of childhood with bagels, lox, and capers. Fantastic. Some nice childhood memories there as well. What are lox? L-O-X. I know what capers are. And I was introduced to bagels when I lived in New York back in the early 90s, and I've loved them ever since. I've had another dram in from it's a new name, John Oyvind Vel. I know I've made a mess of that, John, but I'm going to thank you very, very much for your virtual drama. I'm getting through these Lagavulin 8s now. He's saying, Roy, you're fantastic. Thank you very much, John. You're fantastic too. Keeping up the good work. Have you tried the Kilchoman 100% Isla 8th edition? No, but everybody's raving about it. Enjoying that now. It's like a Springbank local barley with a dollop of smoke and fruit. Sounds perfect, John. It sounds wonderful. Thank you very, very much for that virtual dram as well. And I'll look out for it because you're not the first to tell me that the 8th edition is pretty spectacular. Those of you that follow me will know how much I fell in love with Kilchoman last year. I brought home their 2009 edition, loving that now. It would go very well in this lineup, actually, at 46%. Lovely texture to it. And Bourbon Rye Scotch, good to welcome you in here. He's saying, hi, Roy, have you noticed the small changes in packaging between Lagavulin 8 limited edition and co-range version? Thinner box and no paper ribbon seal underneath the cork wrapper. That's something to talk about. Absolutely, Bourbon Rye Scotch. And this is just a cost thing, isn't it? This is the limited edition packaging. So what you've got here is, perhaps from a transport perspective, you've got a corrugated cardboard liner inside. You've got because of that, you've got a slightly bigger package, and probably the grade of cardboard is a wee bit thicker as well. This is thinner. It only fits around the bottle and no more, and there's no corrugated liner inside. I care not a jot. I would prefer that all whiskey came in this. I don't keep the boxes, and I feel obliged to keep the really nice boxes and expensive boxes, and they just become a pain in the ass. I like to see the whiskey out on display. I like to see the colour of whiskey. I like to see the level that it's at. I like to see the light coming through it when the cabinet lights are on or whatever. I like to be able to hold it up and see it. I don't like having to fiddle and go in and out the box and then put it back in the box. I know a lot of people do like that. So I tend to get rid of the boxes. And when it's a big, expensive box and it ends up in recycling or whatever, I just feel a bit of guilt. I'm happier with this or no box, to be honest. But I understand that boxes are important to a lot of people, and they're important for transportation and things. When it comes to the seal, this paper seal here, this is obviously a 200th anniversary. So it still has the seal that you're talking about. But the 12-year-old has ditched this. The 16-year-old has ditched this. No Lagavulins have these paper seals anymore. They've just given them up. I don't know what the reason for that is. Maybe a cost thing. Maybe they found it fussy. Maybe, I don't know what the reason is. But it's another way to tell it quite obviously from the newer one that doesn't have that. But all the new Lagavulins seem to have got rid of that kind of paper seal. Packaging is a thing. It's certainly, it does. We do have an emotional connection with packaging, whether we admit it or not. But I'm always, despite being into marketing, despite being into design and presentation things, I'm always about the whiskey inside. Just look at Springbank. It's really like they couldn't care any less, and they turn out some of the best stuff on the planet. Emery McGill is in. Good to see you, Emery. Bagel with salmon and cream cheese and capers. Okay. Fantastic. That was something I tried in the States. Wonderful. It was as well. And Nathan, good to see you. Nathan is saying lox is a smoked salmon commonly found on bagels with capers and cream cheese, as Emery was just saying. Fantastic. Fantastic. Mark R is saying, for cheese, I recommend extra mature Gouda. Is that for with whiskey, Mark? Sounds fantastic as well. And Gregor is saying, just posted on Twitter a comment about your vPub for people to join us, plus a pic of my Lagavulin 1991 Distillers Edition. 91, I don't think I ever had that one. I think 93 was the oldest DE edition I had. Okay, let's tear into this Game of Thrones Lagavulin. Now, Sipper Social Club have already done this. Jeremy out of Sipper Social Club in Canada did a comparison. I didn't watch it yet. Sorry, Jeremy, I will watch it. Scotch for Dummies, I got a decent amount. I got 10 minutes through their video, 12 minutes through their video today. Drew and Mark were sitting together comparing it. I think the Whisky Vault are going to do it eminently because they're going through their Game of Thrones comparisons right now. Good fun because those guys have just got the stock. They're just reaching out and grabbing the things from the shelf and they're comparing it alongside it. So we're all kind of, seems to be just the way that the timing has worked out. We're all kind of comparing these at the same time. But I'm going to make a prediction, and I could have predicted this before I'd had any opinion from anybody. As I said at the head of the show, Diageo have an opportunity to engage with new people who don't normally engage with whiskey. They're only getting into the whiskey. They're only buying the whiskey to try it because they're huge fans of Game of Thrones. So they're buying this whiskey. And hopefully they're not going to keep it as a collector's piece. Hopefully they're going to pop those open and drink them. If they're keeping them as a collector's piece, they are naive. Maybe I'll end up with egg in my face. Maybe the words of wisdom I'm just about to share with you are nonsense. But I think for a whiskey to be collectible, it has to have three things. And I'm going to forget what these three things are, but let's give it a go. It needs to have an aspiration, a bit of kudos about it, a bit of reputation, a bit of, people know that it's good whiskey. It's something to be desired. That's the first thing it needs to have. It needs to be something that's available now but won't be available later. It has to be limited edition. It has to be something that is known that there is a limited quantity of, that it's been replaced or it's going to be replaced. It has to be a diminishing asset. And the third thing, and this is the most important thing, it has to be being enjoyed. It has to be being opened and being drunk and shared. Because that adds to the first point, that kudos, that desire, that aspiration. And it means that the stocks that's left out there for trade, for auction, for whatever, are diminishing as well. So for the investment to pay off, that's all got to be happening. People need to be talking about the whiskey in the future. They need to be enthusing about it. They need to know that it's good whiskey and worth collecting. I don't think these HBO Game of Thrones things are any of that. I think it's gimmicky. I think most of the whiskies are printed off what they are, just to remind me. But we're talking about House Tully is a singleton of Glendullan, which I think the Whisky Vault has already reviewed. 40% ABV. So that's going to be like one of the Spey Cascade, or it's going to be one of the non-age statement singletons. 40% ABV. It looks like a $30 retail. You probably have to pay more than that. House of Stark, Dalwhinnie, Winter's Frost. Well, that's going to be Winter's Gold from Dalwhinnie. It's 43% ABV. So yeah, that's probably going to be Winter's Gold, right? The Targaryen is Cardew Gold Reserve. It's going to be Cardew Gold Reserve. Again, 40% ABV, $40. It's exactly in line. So far we're talking about repackaging. Now it starts to get interesting. Lagavulin 9-year-old. Well, there isn't a Lagavulin 9-year-old right now. Are you going to tell me either of these 8-year-olds is something that would get a noob into whiskey? At 48% coming along, this pale colour, this challenging tastes, flavours and aromas, do you think this is going to convert a lot of people? Probably, I think it would. Lagavulin 16 is one of my best noob converter whiskies. But this is a different prospect. There's much more spice and pepper on this. It's not rich and rounded and viscous. There are hooks in here, but they're powerful hooks. They're extreme hooks. It's smoke and brine. It's like a fresh breeze. It's like something to wake you up, this whiskey. I don't think Lagavulin's best foot forward to a new audience would be this 8-year-old. I think that what they're going to do is they're going to pick up something like, immediately look at the colour of this 9-year-old. They're going to soften it. They're going to round it out a bit. They're going to add other things in there, perhaps a dot of color. Who knows? We don't know. But certainly that color could come from different, more active casks, more active bourbon casks, maybe refill sherry casks, although that's probably a bit too valuable for this expression. That's probably, if they've not used those casks, they've colored it to suggest that they have, okay? This is a more soft prospect, I would imagine, that they've gone with. And I've not even sipped it yet, but that's what my prediction is. I think that's what they're going to go after. Greyjoy is a Talisker Select Reserve. Again, it's 45.8%. Every Talisker is 45.8%. So you're probably talking about something like a Sky or a Storm there for that one, a non-age statement Talisker. Again, not expensive at $45. Royal Lochnagar, this is the oldest one actually. The Royal Lochnagar is the oldest one at 12 years old. But Royal Lochnagar is wonderful whiskey, one of Diageo's best whiskies that's destroyed for me by being bottled at 12 years old and 40% only. When you taste it, it's like wonderful, and it's just like, wow, if I could just have a bit more flexibility here, a bit more play, a few more points of ABV in this could be amazing. And wouldn't you know it, the Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old is 40% here as well. So probably just the same whiskey repackaged. Oban Bay Reserve, this is the Night Watch, which is really cool packaging. This is a jet black bottle. $63, 43%. Well, that's going to be Little Bay, which is a good non-age statement whiskey. I like Oban Little Bay. I do quite like it, but it's likely to be a repackaged thing. Here's when it gets different. Clynelish, 51.2%. Why? Non-age statement, of course, but 51.2%. That's very, very interesting. That's the one I really want to try. There's nothing to compare it to. You can't compare that to the 14-year-old. It's 46%, 14 years old. This is 51.2% non-age statement. I'm not suggesting that's cask strength. It's going to be watered down to 51.2, but I don't understand why. It's curious. The only ones that I was actually interested in was the Lagavulin, the Clynelish, and the Oban. And Gregor, you superstar, you sent me the Oban as well. Probably Little Bay, like I said. So I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I'm going to stick my face in this and see what I think. This is not the same drink. This is not the same whiskey. It's too easy and generic, but just the sweeping word is to say sweet. But when I talked about the sugar sweetness in this is a forward sweetness. This isn't in a mid palate to the finish, you know, that kind of spirit sweetness. This is like a cask sweetness. Smoke is subdued compared to these two. 46% versus 48, but I can get my face right in this glass. No alcohol burn at all. This is inviting, but it's not inviting in the same way as this is similar lines to exactly what I predicted. This is a much softer, rounder prospect. Smell this. If you've got it in front of you, and tell me it isn't reminiscent of refill sherry. Could just be active bourbon casks, but much fruitier than the Lagavulin 8-year-old. Sweet fruits, stone fruit, plum. It's almost leaning towards like a jam type. Nice seasonal. I'm just going to go in for a sip. Nothing like the 8-year-old. Wow. Longer finish than I expected. Nothing like the 8-year-old. Richer. A bit more tannic and bitter right at the end there. I need to rewind and go back. Okay. So on the palate, it doesn't taste a lot like refill sherry. It's much more kind of bourbon on the palate. It's much more kind of bourbon cask profile. I defy you in a blind to pick this out at 46% ABV. Maybe it's on the back of the 8. This is softer. Everything is softer here. Everything is, they've knocked the corners off everything here. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't have the engagement. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't have character. This is a nice whiskey. This is a much easier whiskey to sip. This is like sipping, the 8-year-old is like sipping outdoors Lagavulin. You're outside with this. And all the smells, the aromas and flavors on the palate are outdoor things. It's bright and vibrant and breezy. This is indoors. This is a pair of slippers, fireside Lagavulin. This is Lagavulin. The smoke is subdued. It's much, much more subdued. We've got no idea what the retail of this is going to be when it hits the UK. I'm going to guess this is going to be a 60 quid bottle of whiskey, which is a big chunk of change for a 9-year-old whiskey. And I don't care about having it to collect it. I would buy it just to drink the whiskey. This comes out at the same price as the 8-year-old. A couple of pounds more, £55 that order. I think it's a decent prospect, I really do. It's a different whiskey from the 8-year-old. It's completely different. I think it's nice that it's different. Considering the rest of the ranges looks like on paper to be a repackaging, this is clearly a different step forward, and I think they've probably had to do that for Lagavulin. Let's look for Gregor and see what he thinks. Cascode is saying, Aquavite, the softness of character again ties in with your overall thoughts about the Game of Thrones range. I think so. Toon Van Rouge, Toon, good to see you, my friend. Can you explain why the 8-year-old is more expensive than the 16-year-old? Be careful. When I started to enjoy Lagavulin 16, it was 2009. And I was having to pay £40, £42 for a bottle, thereabouts. But Costco had it at £32 plus the added VAT. So it was a wee bit cheaper to buy it in Costco, and that's where I was buying my Lagavulin. You can still buy that Lagavulin more or less for that same price in Costco now. And the retail is about £48, £49 to £55, £59, depending on the shop and how much volume they go through, I guess. I don't know, I'm not sure. But Lagavulin 16, if you look at all the other 16-year-old product that's out there, how is a 16-year-old product from one of the most applauded distilleries? It's not a big distillery. Lagavulin's not big. A 16-year-old product, and I know it's 43%, I know it's chill filtered, I know it's got colour added. I had an absolute pasting from a commenter recently for evangelising about Lagavulin 16 and how great an ambassador was. It was for Scotch whisky, but I understand that some people take that opinion. But the price that it is now, I think the 8-year-old is expensive for an 8-year-old. Yes, I honestly do. But I think the 16-year-old is cheap for a 16-year-old. Let's not say cheap, let's say good value. They're different whiskies, and the 8-year-old is made in much smaller volumes as well, which probably plays into it. The 8-year-old I've seen recently on the two that I bought was £42. The first two I bought was 42, and I got a special offer if I spent over £70 or £75 at duty travel retail. I got 20% off with a voucher, so I got two at £42 each with 20% off. Fantastic. And I've since seen it back at the low 40s as well. So you can pick it up a wee bit cheaper. But yeah, it seems to be, for example, the 200th anniversary one that I just bought there was £51.50 of that order. And I can easily go out and buy a Lagavulin 16 for £45, £48, £49. Specialist retailers will have it in the 50s, but closer to retail. So it's a fair point, and it's something to bear in mind. But it's a completely different whiskey. They're not comparable. They're not comparable. The 8-year-old is served at 48%. I don't think it's coloured, but I don't know for sure. The 16-year-old is 43%. So there's less whiskey in the bottle as well. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just trying to take a position there. We've established that I'm a fanboy, right? Did I miss a super chat? I think I did. I think I missed, let's see. Yes, I did, from Travis, my friend Howard. Thank you so much. My guest Lagavulin chose casks that didn't fit the 8's profile and utilised it in this bottling. I think they've probably got enough depth of casks that they can visualise what they want to make, given the quantity that they need to make for this release, and they can just go out and select those casks. I don't think that they're getting rid of casks that somehow don't fit in another, because they can just vat things away. They can just blend things away through the 16, through the 8, however they're going to do it, through the 12-year-old, who knows. The scale of Lagavulin, while I say it's small in relative to Diageo's scale. But it's still, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Lagavulin casks maturing in Scotland right now. Gregor is saying, you're right, Roy, we should maybe think the other way, how this 16-year-old is still that price. Yes. Yeah, I'm just being a wee bit devil's advocate there, because I think the 8-year-old has to be judged as an 8-year-old, and I think it probably is a wee bit expensive for an 8-year-old. But you can't compare it to the 16-year-old, because the 16-year-old is cheap for a 16-year-old. Gregor is saying, Aquaviti, I know, not yet a peathead, or you're not, but I'm liking this Lagavulin. It's one of the range I don't regret buying. And how can we hate Diageo opening up another window? So I think you're maybe agreeing with me there, Gregor, that you not being a peathead, you've been able to pick up a smoky Lagavulin, because let me tell you, they didn't do any special distillation for this edition. They're taking stocks that they have on hand. 9 years is the youngest that they're reaching for. And they're putting together a softer, more gentle. This is like a warm hand reaching out to comfort you. Whereas this is saying take it or leave it. Most of us love the 8-year-old and we're saying take it. But this is just a kind of much more easy place to go. I will buy, if I can buy it, and if it's not too expensive, I will buy a Game of Thrones Lagavulin. It's really nice. I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying it. I've got one wee subject to talk about real quick before we go into the quiz. There's 212 of you, according to this. I don't know if that's even up to date. Is that right? Can there be that many of you listening to this? 4 down thumbs. Tell me why. Yes, I'm going to go into the quiz. The quiz is a multiple choice. It's always multiple choice. And the quiz questions are tricky and oddball, and some of them are strange sometimes. Some of them are easy. But the idea is that they are there to encourage or to stimulate a bit of curiosity, a bit of learning, or to make some people ask why. So stay for the quiz if you think you're up for it. I appreciate that it's getting a bit late for quite a lot of you. And remember, later tonight as well, Scotch for Dummies will probably, hopefully, be talking about their Lagavulin experience as well. And their live stream a bit later. If the time zone suits you, tune into those guys as well. They do have a brand ambassador on later tonight as well. And remember, Trenny and C over in Canada are going to be reviewing my Whiskey of the Year last year, which is the RN14, and I'm really curious to hear what those guys thought about it. Claire the Third is saying, so is 9 year better than 8 year? To my palate, just for the sake of giving you an answer, Claire the Third, I'm going to say no. To my palate, I would take the 8 year, but that's where I'm in whiskey right now. I think a few years ago, I would have plumped for that richer, rounder, sweeter, easier, more access of the 9 year old. But I would fully recommend anybody. Like I say, it's price dependent. Claire, I don't know what price that's going to come out at. But if it's reasonable money, if it's priced similar or not too much above the 8 year old, I'll pick it up. Caskmate, you star, he's bought me a virtual dram. And he's saying, a bit late, thanks for stopping by yesterday. You're very, very welcome, my friend. No problem at all. I'll raise a glass to you, and I'll wish you all the very best with your channel as well. I hope you have a lot of fun doing it. Loving the production value already. I think you're doing a great job, and I think you've got a lot of scope out there to do great things with it. And thank you for the virtual dram, my friend. Matthias, isn't it? It's Matthias. Yes, it's Matthias. I'm sure it is. Troy, fantastic to see you. Troy saying, Aquavidia, I heard that the Game of Thrones 9 is similar to the 16. Yes, it's closer to the 16 in profile. Keep in mind that the age statement only refers to the youngest barrels used, of course. I would say it's closer to the 16. If it's appropriate tonight, and if I get through, I've got four drams in front of me right now. I may pour a 16 a wee bit later. Ardbaggy, Andy, you star, is saying, Diageo, all this lager talk makes me reach for Ardbeg every time. Well, you wouldn't be called Ardbaggy for nothing. I think fanboy isn't there, but I think that mindset is dangerous in whiskey. I think as soon as you say, yeah, I like Laphroaig, yeah, I like Ardbeg, yeah, I like Lagavulin, as soon as you nail your it's a bit like tribalism. It's a bit like supporting a football team. It's a bit like taking a position just for the sake of it. I don't think whiskey lends itself to that at all. I don't think there's any place for that in whiskey. I think if I was to stand up here and say I don't like Ardbeg, or if I don't like something, I have to say that, but always have my eye out looking for something that could change my mind. And all you have to do, more often than not, is try them blind. You quickly understand that what you're actually buying into is favoritism through branding, through presentation, through pre-programming, through previous experiences, through your the fact that you've visited one or you've engaged with one brand more than the other. Be careful with whiskey that you're not loving the brand more than the whiskey. Let the whiskey do the talking, not the people who paint the whiskey. Thomas George is saying, it would be nice to see Islay distilleries going for younger age statements, bottlings at higher strength, like the Lagavulin 8-year-old. Exactly, Thomas. I agree. Gives peat lovers more of what they want and is an alternative to no age statement. I think it's great. I mean, how many distilleries do you know are confident to put single age? I mean, Ben Romack have done it with a 5-year-old. Glendronach have done it with an 8-year-old. Lagavulin with an 8-year-old. It's starting to happen. It's coming now. But we need to embrace that and support that and applaud it, because I can see the temptation for them to remove the age statement, because to people who are less experienced to see that an 8 alongside a 10 or a 12, they can kind of assume that it's lesser when it's not. It's just different. Donald is saying, would my friend's assessment of the 9-year being more reminiscent of a Bowmore than a Lagavulin be correct? You know, there's nothing in here reminiscent of Bowmore to me. But I understand where he's coming from. The sense that it's a softer, more easy, accessible Islay expression. The peat is here, the smoke is here, it's still here. But I understand where he's coming from. I don't think I would compare it to Bowmore. And Castmate is confirming that his name is fantastic. Okay, so I spoke to you about responsible drinking, didn't I, in December? And I had like a week of, let's say, preparation or cleansing. I went for a week in December without having anything to drink at all, which was much harder than I expected, actually. And I started to, I spoke to you about it on the live stream back in December, and I told you that I'd installed an app. And I'd started to record what I was drinking as I was drinking it, or as soon after as I could remember. And it's interesting to me because when I pour one of the beers that I enjoy during dinner or after dinner, it's 2.3 units, one of these beers. I was like, what? So it adds up quite quickly. If I'm drinking a lot of wine and beer, I think I'm drinking far, far too much. If I was just to have a couple of beers, one or two occasional glasses of wine, and focus on whiskey, I'm still drinking over the recommended limit. I'm still 14 units apparently in the UK, which is, I think, far too low. I think it's ridiculous. I think it sends the wrong message out. But I'm drinking more than they recommend. But actually, even over Christmas and New Year, I was quite surprised to see I'm drinking less than I expected. And I think that that's got a lot to do with the fact that I'm making a conscious effort to record it. Because I'm recording it, I'm thinking about the drink before I drink it. That was a big thing for me. Also, there's a lot of dry January, sober October, and dry July, and all of this kind of thing that's happening. I cannot do that. It depends on your character. It depends on the type of person that you are, for sure. But if I went that week and I was just really, really looking forward to just having my feet up with a nice, comforting dram, just to get that flavor, to get that kind of. I think if I went a month, I think when I came back to drinking again, I think I would hit it harder, much harder than I would have done if I had just kind of continued to. I think balance for me, for my character, is the key. Not to deny myself anything, but just challenge myself to keep it in check and balanced. Scott Kilted Moose is saying he drank too much wine, beer, and gin over the festive season. It's far too easy to do, Scott. Now back to my usual, having at least 4 dry days a week. That's good. It's balance. 3-4 dry days a week, and then you can enjoy and treat yourself on the other days. I can't even manage 3 or 4. I manage 1 or 2 at best. But it's when I do drink, it's very, very small. It's very small amounts. Castmate is saying, received Klein Leash 14, another evangelism from you that just blew me away. Glad you're enjoying it. I'm still waiting on my latest Klein Leash 14 to come good. It's still a wee bit overly fruity and sweet. It's not what I would expect. Maybe it'll switch up and change. I'll keep you posted. Glad that you're enjoying it, Matthias. It's a fantastic distillery. Abaggy saying, not had a drink since New Year's Eve. Will be our Burns night before I have a dram. See, maybe that suits your character, Andy. Maybe you're quite happy not to have any and then just walk straight back into it again on Burns night. That's great. It's fantastic. But for me, I'm always watching whiskey content. I'm reading about whiskey. I'm learning about whiskey. And kind of everything that you're doing around whiskey, you just kind of want to have the taste. You want to try these things. It's harder. Andreas, this is going to be tough. Andreas Hjorthrun. Let's try that. I had January 1st and 2nd off whiskey. Tasted amazing on January 3rd. That is a big benefit, Andreas. I have to say that when you do come back again, the whiskey can taste better. It's like it re-energizes and resets your palate. Definitely, that's a good reason for doing it. And the Alchemist is saying, yeah, I have at least 4 to 5 dry hours a week. He's winking. Excellent, Sevi. You're going to have to be obviously much more careful, obviously, with a brand new baby in the house. Okay, let's get the quiz underway. Said all I want to say. I don't know how much I've interacted with you guys tonight. I hope it's been worth your while stopping by. I do sometimes wonder why I do this, and then I sit here and chat with you for a while and realise that it's a lot of fun for me. I hope it's okay for you guys too. But I do have a quiz here. I hope that Jason is still available. Let me have a quick look in the direct messages that I should have been paying attention to make sure I've had everything in from Jason tonight. Let's see. I think I caught them all. Jason Nathans, Travis, I got. John, I did. Toon, I don't know if I got that. Toon, I think you sent me a super chat, a virtual dram that I missed. You saying, what bottle would you buy if you had the 8-year or the 16-year-old? If I had just one, it would be the 16. But if I had the choice and I could go and buy a 16 anytime I wanted and an 8 anytime I wanted, I'd probably buy an 8-year-old 50% of the time. I hope that makes sense. Mark Kane is saying, could I ask a question? I'm new. Hello. Welcome in, Mark. I hope you're still here. I'm 31 next month. I have £100 to spend on a bottle of whiskey. What should I buy? Glendronach 18-year-old Allardyce. Sherry Bomb. Buy it while you can. We're all going to be crying into our handkerchiefs when that's gone. Roy, let me know when you're ready for the quiz. Jason, I'm ready for the quiz. Let's put some wheels on it and get through this quite quickly tonight. I'm determined to keep this under 2 hours. Thank you for hanging about and thank you for staying for the quiz. So 193 watching when I start the quiz. Let's see how many stay for the quiz. Like I say, you don't need to participate. You don't need to put that. You can keep the answers to yourself and very personal. But measure yourself. You keep your own score. It's multiple choice. There's 3 choices for every question. And there just might be a question or two occasionally that might intrigue you or might pique your curiosity. And that's the point of it all. Ebhead is saying that was a quick answer. Agree. Yeah, the Glendronach. Stephen Davison is saying, how's your ARM 21 sipping? Interesting, Stephen. The ARM 21, to me, and I haven't done any research on it, so I need to research it. There's lots and lots and lots going on there. And I'm going to need time to let that sit in that bottle and then go back to it, because I had a sip recently and it tasted a lot like infinity bottle. It was just, there was just a bunch of things going on. I mean, really nice, really rich, lots of flavors, lots to kind of spend time with, but I've not got time to get my head around it yet. Please remind me and I'll feed back to you. Christina's just sent me a virtual dram saying, here's a drink on me, Roy. You star, Christina. Likely my last vPub for a few months. I'll catch it all on the replay. Is that down to commitments at your side, Christina? That would be a shame not to see you in here, Christina, but it's fantastic. And thanks you so much for all your support and the amount of time that you spend in here hanging out with us as well. Thank you so much for your virtual dram, Christina. You're a star. Thanks for all you do. Hoagie's in for the quiz. Fantastic, my friend. Good to welcome you here. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Hopefully you can see this. Hopefully Jason is putting in the question 1 right now. Just roll straight into it. A fun question to start with. We're talking about Tintin here, of course. Which whiskey was preferred by the famous Captain Haddock? Captain Haddock from Tintin. Was it Loch Fyne Distillery? Was it Loch Lomond Distillery? Or was it Loch Ness Distillery? What whiskey did Captain Haddock enjoy? We're talking about the picture book, the comic strip, Adventures of Tintin. Captain Haddock was his sidekick in that, and famously was often drunk, which I always found quite interesting for a kid's book. But was he drunk on A, Loch Fyne, B, Loch Lomond, or C, Loch Ness? Everybody's all over the place. No, actually, there's a huge consensus for B, which would be Loch Lomond. A, the one glass man is saying A. Gregor McWee thinks C, Loch Ness. Toby Fields C as well. Lots of people B. Whisky Bowman, good to see you in, Whisky Bowman. Nice to welcome you here. He's saying B. Dundee Drammer, good to see you, saying B. Chris Banks Wildlife, fantastic to see you in, Chris, also saying B. Whisky Radar. It just jumped. I didn't see what your answer was there, Whisky Radar. The quiz jumped. Okay, let's have a wee look to see what Captain Haddock drank in the comics. He actually drank B, Loch Lomond. There you go. So Loch Lomond was more famous than you thought, perhaps. But I think most of you got that right. Give yourself a point if you answered B for Loch Lomond as we go into question 2. Which distillery changed its labelling from established 1742 to established 1816? I'm speaking about something that happened fairly recently, not too recently, maybe 30 or so years ago. But when they started to bottle single malt, they emblazoned established 1742 on there. And then one day that changed and they started to admit that probably it was likely to be 1816. And at 1742, they were telling fibs and referring to the illicit distillation that went on there previously? Was it A, Lagavulin, B, Laphroaig, C, Bunnahabhain? Who used to be established in 1742, but more recently, 1816. A, Lagavulin, B, Laphroaig, or C, Bunnahabhain? Multi-Haggis Muncher is in. Great to see you, Matthew. Fantastic to welcome you here again. T Green is in as well. Mose is in. Fantastic to see you. A disagreement on answers. Multi-Haggis Muncher and T Green both say A, but Mose thinks it's B. Mark Saliba is saying A. Good to see you, Mark. Marku Makinen or Makinen. I don't know how to pronounce that either, Marku. I apologise. He says A. Nicholas Burt is in as well. Santa Cruz and Chris is in. Fantastic, Nicholas and Chris. Wonderful to see you both thinking A. Jean de la Cuisine is in. Good to see you, Sean. A as well. Connor Strang is writing Lagavulin in big letters to help everybody out. Hoagie Bear also thinks it's lag. So Connor Strang knows a thing or two about whiskey, believe me, as does Hoagie Bear. They say it's Lagavulin. Let's see if they're right. Yes, A, Lagavulin. If you answered A for Lagavulin, give yourself a point. I'm going back to their original malt bottle. They used to do I'd love to get my hands on a Lagavulin 12-year-olds from the 80s, but they used to say established 1742 on there, and of course, they're referring to the illicit distillation that used to happen there. But nowadays, as we've shown you tonight, they have 1816 on there. So there was a clue earlier in the stream tonight, if you didn't know that, and they had their 200th anniversary in 2016, which is what brought us the 8-year-old. Okay, let's move on to question 3 quickly. Which warehouses were used to shoot the heist scenes in the 2012 movie The Angel's Share? Fantastic movie. In fact, the closing scenes of that movie, it's kind of my claim to fame, I suppose. The closing scenes of that movie were actually filmed just outside this house, literally on the street out there. But it's a great movie, lots of kind of whiskey themes through it. It can be challenging as well, lots of bittersweet things in it, lots of difficult things to see. It's a kind of thicker slice, a rougher slice of Glasgow, but fantastic whiskey flick as well, lots of comedy in there as well. But I want to know, what warehouse did they film the heist scenes when they're stealing the whiskey? What warehouse did they use? Was it A, Glengoyne, B, Deanston, or C, Balblair? The heist scene. So specifically, I'm talking about when they uncover a cask of malt mill, you know, the holy grail of whiskey. They, while it's been auctioned off, they break in and they siphon off whiskey out of the cask of malt mill. And it's in a very specific warehouse, very picturesque. Pretty much everybody are shouting Balblair from the rooftops. If anybody's going to go against the tide here, and Willie Dollier's in as well. Great to see you, Willie. How are you keeping? Great to welcome you in here. He's everybody's saying C. Everybody's saying C. Let's see if Balblair is the right answer for the heist scene in The Angel's Share. It is, of course, C, Balblair. Great movie. I recommend that you pick it up. Okay, here's the picture question coming up as well. Question 4. And of course, it's an interior shot this time as opposed to outside. I just want you to tell me which distillery you think that could be. Quite a curious contrast there between the spirit still and the wash still, right? Is that the Cotswolds, A, Penderyn, B, or the Lakes Distillery, C? I'm going to leave that picture up there so you can look at it. Malt Chronicles is saying, I hate picture questions. Connor Strang is saying Cotswolds. Jimmy Legg has spotted the column still in the background. Good to see you in, Jimmy. I'll leave it there with you. I'm obviously looking at places outside of Scotland here. So we've got Cotswolds in the southwest, Penderyn in Wales, and the Lakes Distillery in the north of England. Let's have a wee look. Eric Waite is warning, Angel's Share has a ton of cussing. So when you watch, don't have wee kids in the room. I would have to agree, Eric. It's there's lots of violence and bad language in there as well. It's a kind of rags to riches type story, right? Okay, everybody is saying that it is the Cotswolds. Let's see if they're right. Yes, the picture that you're looking at is indeed, the Cotswolds Distillery. So if you answered A for the Cotswolds, give yourself a point. As we move on to the halfway point, question 5, and ask which Speyside town was formerly known as Balvenie. So one of the Speyside towns used to be called Balvenie. Not the Balvenie, just Balvenie. Is it A, Keith, B, Elgin, or C, Dufton? Which of those three was once called Balvenie? A, Keith, B, Elgin, or C, Dufton? Sid Martin is in. Good to see you, Sid. Fantastic to see you. Ooh, there's a couple of people with a full house. Caskmate and Gregor are both saying they've got 4 out of 4 so far. I would suggest that you're probably going to keep it together then for a 5 out of 5 at the halfway point. Are the questions too easy for you guys tonight? Lots of people coming in. Everything's pouring in, and everybody seems to think it's C, which would be Dufton. Everybody thinks Dufton. And Hoagie Bear is putting in the little character that in German, which I think is pronounced as a double S. So don't know what that means, Hoagie. What are you going for? By far, the consensus seems to think that it's C. Let's have a wee look. Balvenie changed its name to Dufton. Yes, Dufton in Speyside. Town named after me. Actually, it's named after James Duff, the founder of the town. Lots of Duffs in whiskey and Duff things. Duff is Gaelic, Scots Gaelic for, or do, DHU, so Cardew is black rock. There's lots of do's in whiskey, and do is Gaelic for black, which is Duff. A little curiosity for you there. Let's go on to question 6. Which of these distilleries has not been sold by Edrington Group in recent years? So the important thing there is to say not been sold by Edrington Group. It has not been sold by Edrington Group, okay? Is it A, Glenturret has not been sold by Edrington? B, Glenrothes has not been sold by Edrington? C, Tamdhu has not been sold by Edrington? A, Glenturret, B, Glenrothes, C, Tamdhu. One of those three hasn't been sold by Edrington, while the other two have. That extra grip, that extra ABV, that extra freshness, that extra brightness in the Lagavulin 8 just makes it, if you're a whiskey fan, if you really love your whiskey and you look for engagement, you look for something to the whiskey to stand up and shout at you, the Lagavulin 8 is where to go. Ooh, this is all over the place a wee bit. It could be a banana skin, this one. Matt Ross is saying Duff is no daft. And Da Wei is in 5 out of 5, following the crowd on 4 of them. Oh, that can happen. It's fine. It's just a bit of fun. And like I say, it's less to do with the scores and more to do with the... Sometimes following the crowd can be a mistake. And people have been caught out in the past with that. But like I say, it's just fun. Let's have a look to see. The distillery that has not been sold by Edrington Group in recent years was B, Glenrothes. Bit of a banana skin there, and I'll say because Glenrothes as a brand was sold to Berry Brothers, and recently Edrington bought it back again. But as in terms of the distillery, in terms of the buildings, in terms of the plant, in terms of the equipment, always belonged to Edrington. They never sold the distillery. They just sold Glenrothes as a brand to Berry Brothers and then bought it back. Glenturret, as we know, was sold to Lalique, or the owners of Lalique, just at the end of last year. And Tamdhu was sold to Ian MacLeod, who also owned Glengoyne back in 2011. Both of those sold by Edrington. Moving on to question 7. Which distillery has active plans to reinstall its own in-house floor maltings? So most places buy from centralised maltings, huge plants, facilities that are just designed to do nothing else but malt the barley and then distribute it out to the distilleries. There are a few distilleries still there, mostly for, some of them swear that it changes the character of their whiskey, but it's mostly a kind of tourist thing to let people see floor maltings and how it works and things. But this distillery doesn't have floor maltings, but they're going to put it back in, which is a curious thing. Is it A, Bruichladdich, B, Ardbeg, or C, Bunnahabhain? One of those distilleries is going to reinstall its floor maltings. A, Bruichladdich, B, Ardbeg, or C, Bunnahabhain, one of the Islay distilleries. Donald is admitting, which is fine, Donald. Okay, 1 out of 6, epic fail. You know what? Is it a fail if you come away having learned something, having been intrigued by something, wanting to go off and learn a wee bit more? Is it a failure? And I'm going to raise a glass to you for admitting that it's 1 out of 6. Well done, Donald. Most people going for A, but this is splitting a lot of people. A lot of people think B, a lot of people think C. A seems to be the favoured idea. Whiskey Bowman is saying, admitting he doesn't have an idea, and he's saying C. Scott is saying he's totally guessing this one. Okay, let's have a wee look. Distillery thinking of putting back floor maltings is Bruichladdich. I'll be honest and say I didn't know that. I think I might have guessed Bruichladdich just because of, you know, that's how quirky Bruichladdich actually are. But they're thinking of, they're planning to move their bottling plant somewhere else so that it can free up the space for them to have floor maltings where they currently bottle right now. So if you answered A for Bruichladdich, give yourself a point as we move into question 8. 3 questions left to go. Before being called Whisky Vault, the biggest whiskey YouTube channel was called, you know, I always like to put a whiskey YouTube question in there, right? I just like to, whiskey on YouTube is a thing. The community is building all the time. Not least because of these guys. 158,000 subscribers now. Unbelievable. Daily videos, fantastic fun. Just great stuff. Just hats off to the guys there. But what did they used to be called before they were the Whisky Vault? Were they A, Wizard Academy, B, the Whisky Marketing School, or C, Whisky Biscuits? Whisky Biscuits. A, Wizard Academy, B, the Whisky Marketing School, or C, Whisky Biscuits? What do you think? Jimmy Jazz is saying Ralphie.com. Yeah, Ralphie.com is doing well. They're 114, 100,000, 15 subscribers, still a massive channel, Ralphie there. And he's still Genesis, right? He's still the original guy, no question. The Whisky Vault and then their sister channel as well, Whisky Tribe, have just injected this energy and this vibe into just building this community. And I think it can only be a good thing, and long may it continue being a good thing and a positive thing. And they're also very active in encouraging a very positive culture about being better versions of themselves and using whiskey as a connector of people, which is exactly what this channel is founded on, just the idea of sharing whiskey. It's just, it's a good thing. Let's have a wee look and see. All over the place here, actually. Wow. Christina, who's an administrator for the Whisky Tribe, is saying A or B. She's going to go with A. Let's see if our Christina is right. She has guessed that before it was called the Whisky Vault, it was called Wizard Academy. Yes, Christina. You're absolutely right. It was Wizard Academy before it was called the Whisky Vault. 2 questions left to go. I'll ask you how you're doing before I ask the last question. Let's go into question 9, which is, which of these countries is the largest consumer of malt Scotch? The crucial word in that question is malt. Malt Scotch. And I'm going to give you a choice of 3. So I'm not asking, it's not necessarily the biggest in the world, but out of the 3 choices, which is the biggest? Would you say Germany consumes the most of these 3, Canada consumes the most, or the United Kingdom? Which of these 3 consume the most? A, Germany, B, Canada, or C, the good old UK? Winter is perfect for peated whiskies, don't you think? I know I've just sipped, just by that sugar sweetness, that ice and sugar sweetness, I know that I've just sipped the anniversary edition. This one's all over the place as well. I knew that this was going to be one that would divide. It's kind of a guess thing. How would you know that? But it's kind of interesting because I'll say that the one that is the biggest consumer of malt Scotch is double the size of the next one. Let's see what it is. George Kaplan is saying C for, I guess he's saying a United Kingdom, George. Good to see you in, George, as well. Fantastic to see you and Amy in tonight. One Glass Man is saying Germany. Daniel Vermaas also saying Germany. Chris Banks Wildlife, Germany. Willie Dolier is saying the UK. Ardbaggy is saying the UK. Christina is saying Germany. Castmate Matthias and Malt Chronicles. Tony Evans, Roulette. Whiskey Series, good to see you in, Roulette. That's a new name, but you're also saying A. Let's have a look to see. The biggest of these three in terms of consumption of malt Scotch is the UK. Now that's bizarre to me, because if you've ever been into Germany and see just how crazy they are about the whiskey, I was fairly convinced that those guys perhaps could consume more malt Scotch than us. I thought that we would be more into blends like France is. But out of those three countries, Canada, Germany, and the UK, we are by a factor of 2 the biggest of those three. Okay, let me know what your scores are. I have got a few minutes left to keep this under 2 hours. 168 of you still in, you absolutely wonderful crowd of fantastic whiskey folk. Thank you so much for staying, and I hope you're enjoying. Malt Chronicles is saying, I'm losing my scheisse. And I had to allow that comment. So it seems like YouTube also speaks German and knows the German swear words as well, Bart. Okay, Ebhead Rolf has got 6 out of 9 tonight. Jason Coates is 8 out of 9. Fantastic, Jason. Multi-Agus Muncher, 7 out of 9. Superb. Donald managed to get another one. He's doubled up to 2 out of 9. Toby Field, 3 out of 9. Unlucky for Toby and Donald tonight. Nicholas Birch looking at his pass mark guaranteed at 5. Andreas is 6. Wow, it's just jumped. Lost it. Lost where I was. Jean de la Cuisine, 4. Too much other stuff to drink in Germany, perhaps true. Ross Mashburn on a pass mark of 5. Kilted Moose Scott, well done, 7. Hoyt is in as well. Good to see you, Hoyt. Also on 7. George Kaplan, 7. Jimmy Jazz, 6. Greg, 6. Mose, 4. Christina Zarpoli, 5. Cascode, 6. Ardbaggy and Davey, both on 8 out of 9. Great scores. Mark Saliba, 7. One Glass Man, 4. T Green, 2 out of 9. Whiskey Radar, 5 out of 9. Tony Evans is saying was 7 out of 7 now, 7 out of 9. Damn, banana skins at the last, Tony. Unlucky, my friend. Unlucky. Okay, let's go into the last question. Looks like nobody is on a full house tonight. Last question. Oh, George Kaplan's saying, any bonus questions to help us out? I need 2, maybe 3. Fair enough. Okay. Question 10, last question. Which Game of Thrones house is commemorated by Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old? I wouldn't have had a clue had I not researched the subject for tonight's stream. Which Game of Thrones house is commemorated by Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old? Is it A, Baratheon, B, Greyjoy, or C, Tyrell? A, Baratheon, B, Greyjoy, or C, Tyrell. Now, I know you could say, I don't know anything about Game of Thrones, but it's a kind of whiskey thing. This is a kind of whiskey question. Jimmy Legg is saying, don't care. Kilted Moose Scott is saying, total punt coming up. Let's see what you've gone with, Scott. Wow, lots and lots and lots of people. Eric Waite saying House of Pancakes. Lots of people saying A, which would be Baratheon. A. Ask Rob, Whiskey in the 6. Chris is saying from Santa Cruz, and absolutely. The Four Wills has just sent across. Brian has sent across a virtual drama as well. Thank you very, very much, Brian. I'll raise a glass here and say Cheers, my friend. It's in dollars, so I imagine you're over in the States. Thank you for the dram. Oh, Tom R was on 9 out of 9 tonight. Wow. Tom, you star. Could you make it a full house? Let's see. What did Tom R answer before I reveal? I'm looking for your little icon as I scroll up, Tom. Did you commit an answer yet? Or are you waiting? Oh, he's saying he's nervous now. That's the last comment I got from you, Tom. Let's see if you've committed an answer. For a full house, 10 out of 10, which would afford you, oh no, he's answered A for Baratheon. If you get 10 out of 10 tonight, Tom, that affords you the privilege of sending and contributing some quiz questions if you choose to. It's like a little reward that folk get for scoring 10 out of 10. They can contribute to quiz questions. I'm not guaranteeing I'll use the questions, but you can contribute. Okay, let's have a wee look. Tom answered A. He's suggesting it's Baratheon. Royal Loch Nagar commemorates Game of Thrones, House of A. Baratheon. Well done, Tom. 10 out of 10. My star student tonight. Fantastic. I don't think I could celebrate anybody better. Tom, you've been supporting me from the very, very start. It's always fantastic to see your face in here. I absolutely love it. And I think it's wonderful that you've managed a 10 out of 10 tonight. Has anybody else managed a full house tonight, or does Tom take the honours? Let's see. I'm looking at Jason to see if he's given me any feedback. Caskmate, 9 out of 10, superstar. Sevi the Alchemist, great score, 7 out of 10. Daniel Vermas, 9 out of 10, superb Daniel. Whiskey Bowman, 7 out of 10. Kilden Moose is saying, well done, Tom R, absolutely. Whiskey Dram, superb Whiskey Dram, good to see you. With an 8 out of 10, Matthias is saying 6 out of 10, good to have you, Matthias, as well. Cascode, 7 out of 10, Jimmy Jazz, 6 out of 10. Andreas has got 7 out of 10, a few complete guesses. Listen, it's the way it goes, but with multiple choice, it plays to your favour sometimes, absolutely. Got a glass of water here. I'm going to drop a wee bit of water into these jams and sit here and relax and do a bit of housekeeping when the live is finished. This is a 5-week month for Thursdays. So there's a live stream next week, unless you think it's too much. If you want to wait till the end of the month, that's fine. I'll just go and relax for a little while. But if you're up for a live stream next week, I'm more than happy to bring it to you. When there's 5 Thursdays in a month, not knowing which Thursday to do it on, I tend to go for both, just to cover both options. I hope you'll join me. I'm recording a couple of video projects right now. They're quite long-winded. And they're quite a bit out there, but I hope to get some progress made with those as well, so that there will also be some pre-recorded content coming out to you all soon as well. This has been a fantastic way to start 2019. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. As Nicholas Burt sends across a virtual drama, I can raise a glass to that very happily. Nicholas, thank you very much. Scoring 6 out of 10. Decent pass back, Nicholas, saying great show again as always, Roy. Really happy actually catch you on the live run. Nicholas, it's wonderful to see you, and thank you for the drama, friend. I know you're going to try and keep me to go over 2 hours, but I'm just going to say thank you very, very much. Castmate is saying thank you for another great stream. I'm out seeing cyberspace. I'll see you as well, Matthias. Fantastic. Mikey Hay, my friend, is saying, is the 3rd live stream going to be on the 31st? Yes, it'll be on the last Thursday of the month. Hope that's okay for you, Mikey, and I hope to see you all next week, and then on the last Thursday of the month as well. Tony Evans is saying Happy New Year. Yes, let's make 2019 a fantastic whiskey year for everyone. It's certainly shaping up to be a fantastic whiskey year. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you guys. Wonderful to have you all in here again. Please join Trenny and C for their RM14 review, and then the Scotch for Dummies with their live stream later in the night if the time zone suits you. Thank you, whiskey folk. Thank you for joining me again, and I'll see you next week. Slancheva.